I don't know if I would say he's the best keeper in the world, but he's perfect for Chelsea. He's exactly what Chelsea need at this moment. Almost just line up with Chelsea and Liverpool and City, where you talk about the best three managers in the league, and you're probably going to say Tuchel, going to say Klopp, you're going to say Guardiola. The best
Yes, people. Welcome back to the We Talk Football podcast. Back like we never left. How you doing, Quakes?
I'm all good, man. How you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. We've drafted in the big guns. We've got Josh from the Anfield Wrap today to talk about the big game, Liverpool and Chelsea in the final. How you doing, Josh?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm buzzing today, to be honest. I think you can probably still hear a little bit in my voice how much I exerted into that yesterday. So yeah, feeling good today.
The day after the night before and all that. Quakes, you were at the game. How was it, mate?
It was amazing. It was an incredible atmosphere. Games between Chelsea and Liverpool evoke memories of big games in the past, whether they be in the Champions League, whether they be in cup competitions, or whether they be Premier League games, mate. It's just there's something between Chelsea and Liverpool that always gives you a thriller. The 2-2 game at Stamford Bridge about a month ago was one of the best halves of football I've seen. And when these two teams are matched up, you're always going to get fireworks. And despite there not being any goals, we got one of the best EFL Cup finals that I've seen in a very, very long time. Going all the way to penalties. I felt like all Chelsea fans, Liverpool fans felt it in the soul that it was going all the way. We kind of knew it. It was inevitable. And then we saw one of the longest penalty shootouts that I've seen in a long time. And it ended with the man that we brought off the bench to save a penalty, missing the penalty. I don't think that ball's come down yet. Talk about road there. I don't know. The alphabet doesn't go far enough for where that ball went. It was unbelievable. And congratulations to Liverpool, who pick up the trophy for, I think it's like the 9th time in their history. The most successful team in this competition. I haven't won it for, I think, a decade now. Last one was under Kenny Dalglish. So congratulations to Liverpool. They deserved it. And I feel like people talk about penalty shootouts being a lottery, but a lot of times it goes to the team that are just a better team. And as the shootout developed, I just knew that Liverpool weren't missing. And us going second, it just piled on the pressure. And eventually we cracked when Kepa scored his penalty. So congratulations to Liverpool. But in terms of being in the stadium, it was an incredible atmosphere. So I could go to some games where there seems to be an unwritten agreement amongst fans that we're not sitting down, and there was nobody sitting down in the whole stadium. It was standing up for the whole game because it was just so gripping and so enthralling. Fans from both sides were singing. So credit to both supporters. There was no trouble either. Like a lot of times with these kind of things, they're marred by incidents, but it seemed very cordial and a great occasion for not only Chelsea and Liverpool fans, but for people who love football.
Yeah, and just to chime in on that, I mean, yeah, for people that love football as a neutral, we were saying off recording, I think it's one of the best finals I've seen in a long time. It was a great game that no one really expected. And like Josh said off camera, it was a 0-0. On paper, it looks like an absolute board draw, but realistically, there was multiple moments in that game where I was off my seat as a neutral. One thing I want to ask you guys is, VAR really played with the heartstrings yesterday. There was lots of late offside calls that were called after the ball was gone in. What was that like to go through? Josh, for yourself, maybe first.
Absolutely excruciating, to be honest. And this has been a thing for Liverpool, like most of this season, really. And there's obviously like a bit of a narrative building around it. And Liverpool fans moved quickly, I think, after the Burnley game a few weeks ago to try and sort of squash the narrative, because there's a bit of a thing going on of like, some smaller teams getting chances against Liverpool in recent weeks. And it's mostly because, Liverpool play a high line. Liverpool are trying to catch you offside. And obviously with this new rule where they let offsides run until the phase of play has finished, then it looks like Liverpool are sort of constantly getting caught out. And there was a couple of those sort of moments yesterday. But when you're in Wembley and it's a League Cup final and you're playing against Chelsea and there's like so much more at stake, you really feel it. Whereas when it's Burnley strike of their course running through on goal and it's just a Premier League game and you're already 1-0 up, you can probably shrug your shoulders a bit more. But there was a few times yesterday where my heart was definitely in my mouth when a few of the Chelsea players got in behind. But as I say, it's the high wire act that Liverpool play, and it's the risks that Jurgen Klopp has always taken as a Liverpool manager, and you can see why, because the trophy record speaks for itself now, and that's another one in the cabinet, which is good to see.
For you, Quaker, so obviously Chelsea put the ball in the back of the net multiple times. I know obviously Liverpool had the Matip goal ruled out. For you, Quaker, did you know before the matter of the fact, or was it something where it was almost like a surprise to you?
It was crazy because obviously when the first goal gets disallowed, there's so much excitement when the ball hits back of the net. That's why we watch football, to see goals. And there's that split second. And then you're always, with football now, whenever you score a goal, you're always standing, especially in the stadium, just waiting to look up at the screen to see if there's going to be anything. You can't really fully invest yourself into it because, like you saw last night, there were so many goals disallowed. For like the second and third ones that were ruled out, a bit more numb to it. Just you're waiting for the official's flag. You're waiting for something to happen. And like Josh touched on there, it's Liverpool play such an incredible high line, and people want to talk about them getting caught out. I don't remember many occasions them getting caught out of this high line. Maybe was it the game last season against Villa where they battered you at their place? But a lot of those goals weren't because of the high line. I think that was just a concoction of like different things that went wrong for Liverpool on that night. But they're incredible at doing it, man. They all step out at once, and as a result of that, and as a result of some of the forward players that Chelsea have got that haven't necessarily got the best footballing brains, when you're talking about Timo Werner and Romelu Lukaku, you're not that surprised when the linesman's flag goes up, combined with the fact that Liverpool are incredible at playing that high line. So it added to the drama, adds to the occasion. I feel like, if I'm being honest, Chelsea edged the game, but Liverpool just being further in their development at this current moment, they probably felt like they weren't going to lose that game. And even though it went down to penalties, it went down to, it was like 11-10 on penalties, Liverpool, I think in the back of their heads, always knew that they were going to beat Chelsea in the game that really mattered for both sides.
I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I was actually rooting for Liverpool, if I'm honest. Like, you know, especially after the last week with the whole, like, you know, all the Russian links and everything like that. You know, I really wanted Liverpool to come home with the trophy. But when you look at the balance of the game, the chances that Chelsea didn't take, you know, Mason Mount's hitting the post in the second half, some of the chances that, you know, Chelsea didn't take, it felt like the game was very much on like a tripwire, and it felt like, I know Liverpool didn't go and score. But yeah, the difference between Liverpool's attacking players and your attacking players is that Liverpool, you give them a chance, and more often than not, they'll take it. Chelsea, for me personally, they look like they lack that cutting edge, and they have done all season. But one thing I do want to talk about is in Liverpool is how good does Luis Diaz look? That guy has hit the ground running. He looked like the best. Like, he looked like he was, you know, Premier League proven. He looked the most accomplished of your front three. I think Mo Salah, for large portions of the game yesterday, as good as he is, I think he's the best player in the world right now. I think he was anonymous for large portions. You know, when Mane come off, I could understand it, but Luis Diaz looked irreplaceable yesterday. What did you think as a Liverpool fan seeing that?
Yeah, it was unbelievable, and his start to his time at Anfield in general has been unbelievable. I think he was a bit of an unknown sort of quantity for a lot of us. I know I was like quoted on a show as saying like maybe he needs a move after Porto before coming to Liverpool, and you know, I'm definitely eating those words now because he has been an absolute revelation, and all our forwards play different roles, and that's like the important thing to say. I think like Salah yesterday, while, you know, sometimes he looks like he's not in the game and sometimes it looks like he is being a bit quiet and stuff like that, he's always got that chance to pop up with a moment. And there was one yesterday where if he'd have just smashed the ball towards the face of goal when he had the chance, and maybe we're talking about a different result and a different performance from Mo Salah, but he doesn't. I think he probably, you know, thinks twice about it and tries to pass it off. Mane yesterday, I thought, was at his disruptive best. I thought he occupied Chelsea's defenders so well and just constantly gave them something to think about, and that's where Mane is at his best, really, particularly when he's playing down the centre, is just, you know, running at men, using his strength, all those sort of physical attributes that he's got, but also getting himself in and around the box, and he's so clever with it as well. I think that's one of the things that goes so underrated about Mane is just how clever he is with the ball at his feet, running with the ball at his feet when he's receiving the ball with a man on his shoulder and that kind of thing. But then, yeah, as you mentioned, Diaz was sort of felt like the unknown quantity, and it felt like he gave Azpilicueta on that right-hand side in particular an absolutely torrid time. There was some times where he'd check back and I'd still be looking the wrong way, so I can't blame Azpilicueta for doing the same. He was just an absolute live wire, and he's been compared to, you know, Luis Suarez in terms of hitting the ground, running at Liverpool, and that's about as big a compliment as you can pay, because I don't think I've seen many better signings in my lifetime than Luis Suarez. So for Diaz to be getting compared to Suarez at this stage is absolutely massive, really. And you're sort of looking at that yesterday and thinking, you know, if that's his first final for Liverpool within a month of him signing, then like what's he going to be able to go on to do? I think the sky could well be the limit for him. It's just so exciting.
And he's the type of, sorry, Quakes, but he's the type of football player that gets you off your seat. You just enjoy seeing him play football. So yeah, if he's playing at that level already, I think it's scary. I think for years, there's been the question marks about how Jurgen Klopp is going to transition this front three into the next generation. And with Jota playing the way Jota does, and with Diaz now coming in, it looks a foregone conclusion. They look like they can slot into the front three, and you might not necessarily subtract away from your side, which is crazy when you're talking about, potentially not having Salah or Mane in your starting lineup. So incredible management from Jurgen Klopp. And as a neutral, he just had me off my seat. I know Azpilicueta's no spring chicken, but he is, he's arguably up there with Chelsea's best ever players. He's a great player still. He's very, very accomplished as a defender. But the turn of pace from Diaz yesterday, Caesar was going home and having nightmares, 100%.
Yeah, and I feel like the more of the victim of Luis Diaz was Trevor Chalobah. Like, there was a couple of spots in the first half where he was turning it inside out, and I'm surprised Chalobah lasted 120 minutes because Luis Diaz had him on toast for large portions of that game. And I feel like with it, it's just another, like you say, Jay, it's another one of those Jurgen Klopp signings which he doesn't really miss. I feel like in Liverpool's recent history, the only signing that's maybe missed or maybe hasn't reached the levels that they were supposed to is Naby Keita. And I feel like that, I won't say it's a problem position for Liverpool, but you're going out there, I think, in the summer to look for a centre midfielder that can maybe do what Naby Keita was supposed to do. And I feel like Thiago not starting and finding that out just before kickoff was a huge blow for Liverpool. And I think that gave Chelsea a lift, because I've been on this podcast numerous times. I love Thiago. I think he's one of the best centre midfielders in the world on his day, in terms of the way he can control the game, stability on the ball. I know that Luis Diaz is trying to trademark the no-look pass, but when Thiago throws a couple of them in, or throws in the drop of the shoulder, there's nothing better to watch in football. And so when he wasn't starting for Liverpool, I thought that was a bit of a concern. But the way that you managed the game, the way that your front three looked, and like you touched on, the way that Luis Diaz looked and has looked since joining Liverpool, it's just scary for the rest of the Premier League. And we might come on to it a little bit later, but I think that it's difficult to say that teams are going to go on to win all the trophies. I don't think that we'll ever see that, but I think Liverpool are in serious contention for the Premier League and Champions League this season, just because of their increased strength and depth, which has happened almost overnight.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, jumping on, Jurgen Klopp just doesn't miss. He just seems to operate at an incredibly high level. Even when Liverpool have been going through, tough periods over the last couple of years with the Van Dijk injury and things like that, Liverpool never really fell away. They were still up there competing to a degree. I think Liverpool just look scary. They look like they've reached the heights that they did a couple of years ago prior to the Van Dijk injury. But, speaking of Naby Keita, he forced that incredible save from Edouard Mendy yesterday, and then obviously the double save. That there for me was probably the standout moment, maybe one of the best saves I've ever seen in my life. My heart was in my mouth thinking, how is that gone? I initially thought, what was it, Mane, who had the second shot? I initially thought that he just kicked the ball straight over the net. I don't understand how Mendy got a hand there and then how it went above the bar. It was crazy. Did you get to see that in real time, Craigs?
I kind of missed it, but they showed the replay and then we saw it on the screen. But at the time, I thought just skied it from the rebound. But yeah, Mendy, it's what he does, and I feel like there's one added caveat with Mendy, because he was unheralded when we signed him. Nobody really knew who he was apart from Petr Cech, who did the scouting on him. And he is, talk about hitting the ground running, for the last 18 months, not to 2 years, he's been one of the best keepers in the world, if not the best keeper in the world. There's still question marks. Liverpool spurned the chance when Mendy, his kicking is not the best. And when the ball goes back to him, my heart is in my mouth a little bit, just because his distribution could be better. That's probably one aspect of his game that's maybe not up there with the likes of Alisson or Ederson. But in terms of shot stopping and in terms of relieving pressure, coming for crosses, which is very, very important in football, man. When you're being bombarded and you need to relieve that pressure and corners are coming in left, right, centre, if you've got a 6'6" goalkeeper who can just grab the ball and calm everything down, it's so valuable and so useful. And that's what Edouard Mendy does so well. And what he also does so well is his lack of ego. There's so many keepers in the world that would not accept coming off in the 119th minute to bring somebody else on for a penalty shootout after you've had the game of your life. But he just takes it, and it takes it on the chin, and he rides with it. And I think that adds to squad harmony. And so I don't know if I would say he's the best keeper in the world, but he's perfect for Chelsea. He's exactly what Chelsea need at this moment.
Okay, well, let me ask you the question then, because I'm sure Josh has got a strong opinion on this also. If we're saying the top three keepers in the Premier League, these names I would think would be Mendy, Ederson and Alisson. is that, that as a neutral, that is, I'm ready to put Mendy in that conversation. You look at his trophy cabinet after the last 18 months, it's ridiculous. And seeing the level of high performances he puts in, he's a month removed from winning the AFCON, like he's come back into the Premier League and doing that in a final, making that save in general is top level. But to do that in a cup final, that changes the game. That actually changed the game. And the only part that he didn't have an influence on was the penalty shootout, which ultimately was the detriment of Chelsea coming down and losing the final, really. Like, who's to say he wouldn't have made a difference taking penalties? But Josh, what's your opinion on this, mate?
Yeah, obviously, I'm probably approaching it from the sort of rose-tinted perspective because I've watched Alisson Becker, game in, game out for years now, and his importance to Liverpool is absolutely undoubted. He's apart from in Carabao Cup finals, he's the first name on the team sheet. I don't know if Quivy and Kelleher will be sort of making a case, maybe pushing on that top three in the Premier League keepers, like you say now, because he's got a goal to his name. It's maybe the one thing Mendy's lacking from his game is a few goals. Who knows? But no, as Quecky said there, like everything he said, I completely agree with. I think Mendy's been an absolute revelation for Chelsea, and that's what you need from your goalkeeper, really, is for them to stylistically fit what you're trying to do, but also it's weighed on like importance, isn't it? I think, and Edouard Mendy has just been so important to Chelsea in the last 18 months. Every sort of trophy that Chelsea have won within that time, it's got Edouard Mendy's fingerprints all over it, in quite a literal sense sometimes, because of some of the saves he makes. That save he makes against Mane yesterday, so I did notice it in real time. Me and my brother were having a bit of a debate because my brother was sort of trying to blame Mane for it, and I was like, no, that's genuinely like remarkable speed from Edouard Mendy to get across. And I think that it's all well and good your goalkeeper having speed. Like, I think Ederson's got speed, probably doesn't know how to use it at times, and he sort of, maybe treads a very fine line in terms of giving away fouls. I know there's one Newcastle in the season where he'd caught Matt Ritchie as he'd come to the corner of his box, and I think Newcastle probably should have had a penalty for that. But Edouard Mendy, he's got speed and knows how to use it. He's so good coming off his line. He's so good recovering, as you see for the Mane save yesterday. And that's probably one thing that Alisson doesn't necessarily have to his game, really. He's clever in moments when he's coming out his line, but he's not quite sort of got that speed. But he's a massive imposing figure in the same way Mendy is as well. But then obviously, as Kweku said as well, Alisson's got the distribution. He's probably one of the best distributors in world football, maybe behind Ederson. So it's a good time for goalkeepers, particularly in the Premier League. The standard is so high, and I think you saw that yesterday in that Quivy and Kelleher genuinely, like, I'm joking about him being a top three keeper in the Premier League, but he looks so comfortable on that stage yesterday. He scores an unbelievable penalty, and to think that that there's probably Premier League clubs will be looking at him now in the summer and wanting to throw some money Liverpool's way, because the standard of Liverpool is so high. You don't know where Kelleher will get over Alisson Becker, but he's a more than competent keeper. And as you say, I don't know if City fans will probably say Ederson's the best in the world, Liverpool fans will say Alisson's the best in the world, Chelsea fans say Mendy's the best in the world, but all three of them are operating at the highest level right now, and that's as a neutral, Jamie, I'm sure you can agree that's so good for football.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say is the two real standout players on the pitch yesterday were Thiago Silva and Virgil van Dijk, in my opinion. I think they were both just top quality in terms of centre-backs. And what I think both teams really have in common is the fact that you've brought on, you look at life pre-Van Dijk and pre-Alisson, and you look at how shaky Liverpool were. They had Mignolet in goal, and they were, shipping goals left, right and centre. And much like Chelsea, when you go back to, life before Mendy, life before Thiago Silva, it was a mistake-ridden team. And, these players have come in, and what Mendy and Alisson do, is they put extra points on the board. And ultimately, they were just operating at the highest level. Like you say, one thing I would say about Kelleher, again, incredible performance. Drew comparisons to Alisson. I think Adrian, the old West Ham keeper, obviously a guy that's close to my heart. But I think he went in there. Was he not the Super Cup final for you guys? Obviously saved the penalty. And yeah, it's always good to see a backup keeper get given a chance and, thrive on the highest stage.
With it as well, I feel like you can almost just line up with Chelsea and Liverpool and City, where you talk about the best three managers in the league, and you're probably going to say Tuchel, going to say Klopp, you're going to say Guardiola. The best centre-backs. The best three centre-backs in the league, you can say Diaz, Van Dijk and Thiago Silva. Like, it's Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool are clear of the other teams in the league. Man City and Liverpool are clear of everybody else in world football. And I feel like when you watch those games between those teams, they're always tight affairs and they're always good games. I remember the Man City versus Liverpool game earlier on the season, one of the best games of the season. Like I said before, the Chelsea versus Liverpool game. Both games, the one at Anfield and the one at Stamford Bridge, those games are high leverage. You don't see a team get slapped up in those games. There's always a back and forth, and you can kind of throw the form book out the window, let those teams go at it. And I feel like we saw that in the final yesterday, and I think we're going to continue to see that for a while, just because these teams are the most stocked teams in the world, and in Liverpool's case, are one of the best teams in the world as well.
Yeah, it's all about spines ultimately, isn't it? I think that's one of the things that, if you're looking at Chelsea at the moment in particular, you mentioned Thiago Silva, you mentioned Mendy, and then one of any three of Kante, Jorginho, or Kovacic is perfectly capable of having a great game in the centre of that midfield as well. It's just the sort of striker, if you go in from back to front, that Chelsea are probably lacking, and that's something Liverpool have had for years and years. And Firmino's probably sort of on the other side of his peak now, but there's other people you can be throwing in there in terms of Liverpool spine. City have always had a great spine. Really, they've always managed to make one of the forward players work and get a good output in terms of goals. So I think that's what all the best teams have is a really good quality spine. And I think Kweku's saying if Chelsea aren't as advanced in Liverpool in their development, then that's maybe the next thing for them to work on, which I know is mad because they went out and spent like so much money on Lukaku, and it's obviously not quite worked. And I don't think Tuchel rates him particularly highly. But I think if they can make Havertz into a proper striker, I don't know what sort of tools he needs to fill that role. But when he's scoring big goals in big games, and I thought he played well yesterday again. So I think he could be maybe the answer to Chelsea in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and to jump on that point, I mean, obviously, the three best teams have probably got the three best spines, and it feels very much like the Premier League race for the title is very much still on. I'm assuming we're all in agreement that, Chelsea, City and Liverpool are probably going to be in the top three, if not, in whatever order they're going to be in. Who knows? It's probably going to be Liverpool and City fighting it up, and then Chelsea will come a close third, I'd imagine. What's your opinion on the race for fourth? Who do you think is going to be the fourth team to, get fourth, so to speak?
Are you just setting this up so you can hope that somebody says West Ham, because I ain't going to say West Ham.
I'm not going to say West Ham either, so sorry.
We were getting on so well.
No, it was rare for us, mate. I had to just throw a spanner in the works. With it, it's an interesting conversation because it's been like one of these seasons where everything looked like it was done and dusted. Everybody thought that they knew what was going to happen. And all of a sudden, a few results go here and there. And now we've got one of the most exciting Premier League seasons of all time. No one knows who's going to go down. No one knows who's going to finish fourth. And no one really knows who's going to win the title. I know that City are probably still the favourites, but I think Liverpool are going to run them close, if not win it. But in terms of fourth place in the table, I've always been of the mindset that a team that brings in Rafael Varane, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Jadon Sancho in the summer cannot not finish fourth. But seeing Man United and seeing their recent performances, there's nothing that leads me to believe that they're going to finish fourth. I don't know, they can't trade a reputation for that much longer this season. They have been poor in large spells of this season, and I just can't see them getting stuff together to finish in the top four. I think there's clear disharmony within the squad. There are problems at boardroom level, there's problems at management level as well. So they're not a cohesive force, and I feel to really push for that fourth place, you have to be together. I feel like I look at these teams that are challenging for it, and Arsenal just keep on getting big results in big moments and getting late winners and not losing to opposition that they used to lose to. Like, if you look at Arsenal in terms of their schedule or their record over the last couple of months, the only side, or the last time they lost a side in the Premier League that they weren't supposed to lose to, was Everton. I think it was the Demarai Gray late winner. Apart from that, they've lost against obviously the sides they're supposed to lose to, and they lost to Manchester United in the game that they probably should have won. But apart from that, man, they win the games they're supposed to win. And the games, two results against Wolves, the first one where they went down to 10 men, they still managed to beat a Wolves team who were banging form, and then scoring those two late goals to beat them the other day was just a dagger for Wolves, and I think that rules them out of the top four place. I think it puts Arsenal in the ascendancy, and they've got games in hand as well, and I don't see them dropping many points against clubs they shouldn't be. So to answer your question, I'm saying Arsenal finishing in the top four.
You know what? It pains me to say it. Like, Arsenal are very much riding a wave at the moment. obviously, I'm biased towards West Ham, but out of those 4 teams, I feel that West Ham are the least likely, if I'm being realistic. Man United are a rotten club. As I've said numerous times, they're a couple of years away from being Arsenal, being known as that banter club, being synonymous with dropping clangers on the football pitch. They're rotten on the pitch, off the pitch. I don't think Man United are going to get top 4 this year. And I think that will actually be a very good thing for them, because it will allow them to essentially reset. The benefit that Arsenal have over all the other clubs is that they don't have to actually juggle a heavy schedule. West Ham, United, Tottenham are all in Europe in different competitions, granted, but they're all juggling European football. Arsenal don't have that, and they're riding a wave of confidence. Those two last minute goals against Wolves were huge, and I can't see anyone but Arsenal at the moment, which is crazy because it's a complete. It's the opposite of what me and you were saying at the start of the year. I mean, one of our most popular videos is me and you tearing into Arteta and laughing at them losing to Brighton, wasn't it? Or something like that. I can't remember. But come on, Josh. You got to back West Ham, but who do you think's finishing 4th, mate? Come on.
I think I'd struggle to back West Ham. I'd love to see someone like West Ham or Wolves finish in the top 4, because I think it would be, a bit of a victory for one of those clubs who don't sort of have. I know West Ham and Wolves both have, big resources, but not on the level of, a Manchester United and maybe even not on the level of an Arsenal in terms of, that sort of historical spending over the last sort of maybe just the Premier League era in general. I think it's going to be Arsenal, just because I think if I look at all 4 of those clubs or teams, who do I think of those is the best coach? Who do I think is the coach who's most got a grip of the sort of project of what he's meant to be carrying out? And I do think it is Arteta. I think there's been some struggles within that, and there's always going to be struggles. They're sort of in an NBA style rebuild, or have been for a few years. Arsenal, and there's been obviously a few sort of dregs of that still coming through, but they're players of quality. You saw Lacazette popping up with a big moment the other night against Wolves, and they're the sort of players you need really to carry over the line. But then, you've got players like Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe coming through. There's a few other players on the Arsenal side who I really like, who I think could go on to be massive players for them. So I think it would in my head, it would be probably Arsenal would be the one that I'd be like least offended by. I say about players of quality, and Manchester United have got loads of them, but as both you and Kweku have said, they're just rotten to the core, really, aren't they? They're like a rotten apple, and it goes from top to bottom at Manchester United at the moment in terms of, it's rotten from the top, and I feel like that goes down. And the signing of Cristiano Ronaldo was a perfect example of that sort of short-termism. They thought they could win the fans back on side. I think some of their fans would have been won over by that signing, but it's proven now that it was just a short-termism signing, and that's not what United need at the moment. United need to actually take a page out of Arsenal's book and look at, ripping it up a bit and starting again, because I think, Arsenal will probably show come the end of the season that is the right way to go and the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think you're really onto something there. I think, having that year out of European football could be the best thing for United. And I think it's interesting, we've unanimously gone with Arsenal. I suppose the last main question, we've got you on here. You're a Liverpool fan. Who's going to win the league this year?
I've got a good feeling about us, but I mean, I'm a very optimistic Liverpool fan in general. I would say that because I don't really see any other way to be. To be honest, I think football is there to be enjoyed, isn't it? And if you can't, if you're writing your team off in at the end of February, then what's the point in doing it? I was there at Wembley yesterday, and consistently thought throughout the game that Liverpool were going to get it done, even when it was coming down to Kelleher's penalty and stuff. It never really crossed my mind that things were going to go wrong, even though my body was saying to me, my heart's beating out my chest and stuff like that. And it's going, you sure you don't think this is going to go wrong? I just don't, and that's the way I like my football to be. So I'm not going to be crowning us as champions in February, but I'm also not going to be crowning Man City. And I just hope that we've put the fear into City a bit. We've won the trophy that they always win at this stage of the season, which allows them to go on and push for the league title. So I'm hoping that we've stolen their blueprint and we can do the same come May.
Okay, it's big words. How about you, Quakey? Come on, mate.
Yeah, so it's an incredible title race, and the thing is that Man City they've not dropped too many points. So they lost to Spurs and they drew Southampton, and all of a sudden we've got a title race when they look like so far in ahead. I feel like every season there needs to be a few cancelled games, a few postponements, so there's games in hand, so it makes the league more exciting. I feel like we can't actually gauge where people are at because not everybody's played the same amount of games, and all of a sudden the gap's 6 points now, but if you win your game in hand, it's 3, and then you've got to go to the Etihad, and your goal difference is very, very healthy as things currently stand. Leeds definitely contributed to that. And I feel like with with the momentum that Liverpool have got and with this Liverpool squad as well, it's incredible. I think it's the best Liverpool squad Klopp has had. He's come out basically and said that. Apart from maybe at right back, I think and centre midfield as well, you're stacked in every position. The fact that Jota was recovering from injury and Firmino was injured, but it didn't make a dent in Liverpool, just tells you how quickly Klopp has developed that squad. And that was maybe the one criticism that people had of Liverpool, that they were over-reliant on their top players. So when you saw a Van Dijk go down, that you saw Liverpool struggle last season. If Salah was to ever get injured, then you'd worry about Liverpool. But I feel like they can ride those waves now and ride any injuries that might come their way. And I think the momentum's with them. So to answer your question, mate, I do, unfortunately, because Liverpool are the team that I hate the most. I have the most disdain towards Liverpool. I am not a fan of them at all. I just think Liverpool are going to win the Premier League. And I think they're also going to win another trophy as well. I think it's going to be a trophy-laden season for Liverpool as retribution for last season, where things, let's be honest, it was a shit show because of various factors. And I feel like they've got the bit between their teeth and they're going to walk away with the Premier League trophy this season.
You both think Liverpool are going to win the league. I mean, you didn't say it in as many words, but I'm reading between the lines, Josh, and you think Liverpool are going to be there by the end of the season. Quaker thinks they're going to win. City are going to win the league, lads. I'm sorry. City are going to win the leagues. I just can't see them. I think as much as Liverpool are performing at a ridiculously high level, Man City are also Man City, and they are performing at an equally high level. They're both incredible football teams. It's because
we didn't say West Ham, isn't it?
Do you know what? Yeah, it is. It's 100%. I'm wounded, and now I'm back in. My guy Pep. Especially if Declan goes there. They're going to have to be my second team. So yeah, you're shaking your head at me. You're shaking your head at me. Come on. I've always got to talk about Declan Rice in one video, all right? It's all I've got, all right? It's all I've got. Cool. But in the meantime, yeah, Josh, it's been so good to have you on, mate. Where can everyone find you?
I'm at jsexton24 on Twitter, or at Josh C. Sexton on Instagram, but also follow the Anfield Wrap if you're a Liverpool fan, because there's loads going on there. And as I was saying before, we enjoy our football. We're proper fans who go all the games and all that kind of thing. There's loads of build up to the game at Wembley yesterday. We interviewed a few Liverpool footballers from past and present, which was dead exciting. It was a massively exciting week. And then the Reds rounded off with a trophy. So there's loads of that sort of stuff over there on the Anfield Wrap.
Amazing. Well, I'll put a link in the description for Josh's Twitter and for the Anfield Wrap as well. And in the meantime, Quaker, where can they find us?
You can find us on Instagram at We Talk Football Podcast, on Twitter at WTF Podcast 90. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. We are gradually growing, but we do appreciate the support. We're on Apple Music, we're on Spotify, so just make sure you give us a follow and check us out there. And we'll be back with more videos very, very soon.
Cheers, guys. Catch you next week.
She come with me, she roll with me, her nails on fleek, nails on fleek. It's not that deep, it's not that deep.